Welcome back. So let's go ahead and talk about what is the other way to pass data from the client to the server. So let's stop this and let's first try to understand why do we need another way. So let me show you an example. So let's say I will say public and then I will say uh, multiply double and I would say multiply. So now I would say return. For now I will say just null. Now what I want is I want to multiply 10,000 numbers. So if I make it as a get mapping and then keep on passing at the rate request param or maybe let's say at the rate path variable path. So I have to do it 10,000 times and how will my URL look like? It will be such a long string with so many variables, which is not good. And also people are seeing my values in the URL. That is also not good. Everything is going to be seen already in the URL. Third thing is the length of the URL is also limited. It cannot be infinite. At some point of time, it will break. So after that point, whatever will be the value will be lost. We won't be able to get it in our Java variables like we are getting it here. So for those kind of scenarios, what we have to do, we should not use get methods. Rather, we should go for post mapping. So we can say post mapping. And here we have to give the URL like slash multiply. That's it. And now we have to create class. And in this class, we have to keep variables. So I will say private double num1, private double num2, private double num3. Similarly, I can keep on going private double num4. I can also keep different data types as well. String, integer, doesn't matter. I can also this can be an employee object as well. Doesn't matter. So now I have to create a generate getters and setters. So I will right click here and generate a getters and setters. So for now I just took examples of 4. So now I will press Control and keep selecting all. So I want to create generate getter setter for all. Perfect. Now what we will do is very simple. We will just go ahead and say calculator DTO and we will say calculator DTO variable. And we have to now use an annotation called at the rate request body. Now what will happen with this annotation? Whatever we pass will be converted into automatically mapped inside these variables. But we cannot pass it in the get format. We have to pass it in the post format. So let's go ahead and create a variable here. Double result equal to null, let's say. And now we'll say result is equal to calculator dto dot get num1 multiplied by calculator dto dot get num2 multiplied by calculator dto dot get num3. Similarly, as many number of variables are there, we can do that. Multiplied by calculator dot get num4. Put a semicolon. Perfect. This is done. And now I can return the result. Right. So now let's go ahead and see how we can get this value. How we will get this value. So let me put a debugger here and start my application. So this is a post mapping, which means now our client is going to send the data to the server. This is the post mapping. This client will send the data to the server, but not in the request mapping, not in the path variable, which means not part of the URL. Rather, it will send it in the JSON object format, JavaScript object notation format as key value pair, key value, comma, key, another key, value. This is a comma, comma. So you can continue giving that. And this key should match with the variable name that we have defined in our DTO class. If we keep the same name in, then Spring Boot is automatically going to make sure with the help of this request body annotation, it will take that value from the JSON object, which is JavaScript object notation. It will take this key value and put it inside the variable here as a value. So let's see that in action. So first thing first, if I copy this, Control A, Control C, and then I can to try to hit this via browser. So it's working. It comes here. Perfect. I can resume it. I can resume the debugger point. It works fine. So if I go to the browser, I will see the response as this. But now, because our other method is post method, this one, so the URL will look like something like this. So if I go here, I can say copy this up to here, calculator, up to calculator. I will copy this and paste it here because that is common. That is something which is common. It is coming from class level request mapping. And after that, I have to paste slash mul. So I will say mul. But is it a get mapping? Can I use get mapping? Can I go into the browser and say like this? I get an error because there is no method with mul as get mapping, and browser can only fire get mapping. What it is saying? Method not allowed. So it says method not allowed. What does it mean? We are saying this is a post mapping annotation, which means data should come in the body instead of in the URL of the HTTP request. So now we got a problem, which means browser cannot help us sending this request. Can Postman help us? Yes, Postman can help us. So we have to first change here get to post. Then we have to click here body. In the body, we have to click on raw. And here we have to form a JSON. How does a JSON look? JSON means JavaScript object notation. So just two curly braces, give a tab, give the first key. What is the first key? And its value. And its value. So let's see what is the name of the key. So in our DTO, this is the name of the key. And what is the data type? Double. So copy the key name, go here, paste it here. And the value, is it of string type? If it is string type, then give it here, XYZ. But it is not string type, so we will not use string type. We will use what type? We will use double, which means we will say 65.83 or something, comma. Another we have, or do we have more data to pass? Yes. So we will say num2, copy that key. Again, some value. So let's say 1.2, comma. Make sure to give comma. Then num3, because that's my key. I know that in the class. So 2.1, comma. Then num4 with the key colon which is key value pair, and then I can say 3.2. That's it. I don't have any other key, so I'm not going to look into more. Remember to change this to the application slash JSON, because now this is our client and it is trying to send JSON information. What it is trying to send? This is our client that we see here. Now it is trying to send JSON object to our server. Hence, this client has to say, I am sending application slash JSON type of data. Only then Spring Boot is able to map that JSON type of data via the help of this into its corresponding variables inside this class. If we don't say that, then we are in a problem. By default, this post mapping accepts application slash JSON. If we want to use different kind of REST request response type, we can specify that. But for now, we are going to just leave it to default, which means it is going to use application slash JSON. So here I am going to say content type as header value, and its value will be application slash see JSON. If I see select this and now click on body, you see it now shows me as a JSON and it's saying invalid JSON because I have forgotten a double quotes here to keep it in double quotes. So now if I go and run this, fire the request, it will stop here. See, it stopped. And now if I hover on this, I see all the values populated. If I add more fields here, it will come. And also it is now secure because nothing I have to put in the URL like I had to put earlier here. And also it will not break because the URL is also very small. So the data is getting passed in the HTTP body. So every HTTP has a header and body. In the header we are just passing what is the type of data, and body we are passing the JSON object, which is getting converted into Java object, and one-to-one mapping of the variables are happening. Num1 value is getting assigned here, num2, num3, num4, because we kept the same key. And now if I go ahead and resume the program, then we will see the response will be coming to us. And here we can see the response. See, response. Let's say I by mistake say num4 to num41. But in our Java variable, there is nothing called num41. So let's see what will happen. Run this. This will come. Nothing will break. But if I hover now, you will see the value of num4 is null. The reason is there is no such variable called num4. There is no key. So this request body annotation of Spring Boot, when it tried to map this num41 key to the num41 of Java variable, it did not find any variable called num41. Hence, there was a problem. Hence, the value for the last variable did not get populated. So, is there a way to solve this? Yes, let's try that. Let's try that how we can solve this problem. So, the solution to this mapping issue is very simple. We have to come to the DTO in our class, and for whichever variable the mapping is different from the request JSON type, we have to do one thing. We have to hit the enter and then put another annotation called JSON property, and make sure this JSON property annotation comes from Jackson from faster XML. And here we will now say with what name is the request coming. So with this name the request is coming, name41, num41. Copy that and paste it here. So now when the Spring Boot's request body annotation will see, okay, there is num1 here, and in the request there is num1, so num1, num2, num2, num3, num3, num41. So it's going to see num41. Let me check. There is no num41. Oh, but yes, there is an annotation. Num41. So it will populate the value for us. Let's put it in debugger and see if it is working. Same can happen for other variables as well. So it removes the tight coupling of your Java variable with the JSON request. So the JSON request can have now any variable name, and your Java variable can have any variable name. So this JSON property helps us in doing that decoupling. So now it has started. Let's go ahead and try to hit this. So if I hit this now, if I hover, you will see the value is now populated perfectly, even though the variable names are different, num41 and num4. But because of this JSON property, the value got populated here. See, num4. Perfect. So now if I click resume, our program will run nicely. Very nice. So this was about a post endpoint. Are there more ways to send information? Yes, there are. Put and patch and delete as well. But put is a combination of, you can say, when you use post and get together, it looks similar to put, which means along with this body, I can also pass something in the URL, like let's say ID as 1, and I can make this as put. This is fine. This will work. For delete, I will just pass in the request. I will not pass the body. So that's how delete works. So we are going to look examples about them in future. So it's only the matter of the fact when you should use get, post, put and delete. Get you can use when you are just passing one or two value in the URL, or like this one or two value which is not sensitive. Post you should use when you have to pass lots of data in the body and it is going to create something in the server. Let's say creating a new employee information in the server. So use post. But what about updating the details of the existing employee? So if you want to update the details of an existing employee, then go for put. P-U-T. U means update. Put is used for update. Post is used for creating new resource in the server. Put is used for updating an existing resource on the server. And delete is used for deleting an existing resource on the server. And what is then get used for? Get is for fetching. You want to query and fetch something from the server. So get is for fetching something from the server. Post is for creating new resource on the server. Put is for updating an existing resource on the server. And delete is for deleting the resource on the server. And patch is same as put, which means patch is also going to update the information on the server. But for with put, you update everything. Let's say there's an employee, you want to update employee's name, employee email, employee phone, employee address. Everything you want to update in one shot, you go for put. If you want to just update one thing at a time, let's say you want to only update employee name, then go for patch method before updating employee name. If you want to only update employee email, then go for another patch method for updating employee email. So patch is a partial update and put is full update of the resource on the server, and post is for creating a new resource on the server. So these are the different um, HTTP methods that we can use, and those are the difference between each of them. So all these methods can be used to communicate from the client to the server via using HTTP methods that we saw: get, post, put, delete, and patch. So client can send information to the server and server can send response back. That's what we have been seeing. So different methods exist for different kind of scenario. One thing to note is, if you see, always we are getting 200 OK, which is the default response from the server. Here also we got 200 OK. And these are HTTP codes. So not always we will send from the server, we will not always send that it is everything was fine. Sometimes we will also send error, which means another different HTTP code. Like when we try to access this method with a get request, then we got another HTTP error 405. It said method does not exist. So those kind of scenario can also happen, which means along with our data and the response, we should be also able to send a response. So how can we do that? We can do that very simply. So let's do that. So there's something called response entity. Response entity. And with response entity, what we can do? We can send two things at a time from our client to our server. One thing, of course, is the data itself, and another thing is our what is the type of response code. So we can also send a response code along with the data information. So let's go ahead and do that. So we will say response entity of what? Of response entity. In this case, what is the return type? Double. So whatever is the return type, you create the response entity object of that type, and then we say response entity is equal to new of response entity. And here we have to pass two things. First thing that we have to pass here, of course, we have to again say here copy this double and put it here double. So if this was about employee, then we can use employee. So what we have to pass now, two things that we want to return. One is of course the data itself, and what is the data? Result. So we'll copy result, and then HTTP status. If I pass OK, then we will see 200, but I will pass created, because with the post endpoint we should always pass created, which is nothing but 201 status code. And now instead of returning double, we will return response entity. So this will change now, and we will return response entity. So this will also change. This will become of response entity. Perfect. So now if I start the server, you will and just try the same request, you will see we will not get 200. Okay, instead we will get 201, because we decided to send a different status code. We could also send another HTTP status code. There are many HTTP status code like 100, 200, 400, 300, 500, authorization error, whatever. But we would like to for now keep it simple with another like for the created one. So let me clear this, and now if I try to send this information, you see we got the same result, but now the status code is 201 created. And that's what the post is used for. Post should be used for creating a new resource at the backend. Hence we got 201, which is stating that the response, if it is having status of 201, something new got created on the server. So this is how using response entity you can pass your data, also the status together in your response when you return back to the client, which means now the client is receiving the data plus status, two things. All right. So I hope all this is clear for you. Thanks for now. I will see you in the next lecture.